Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to start by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Kwame Walther with the Great Millstone Charlotte Camp. Come with a quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Just a quick in transit, man, on the way to camp. I just want to touch on the topic of redeeming the time, man. Right? Now we see we see where we're at in prophecy, right? And it's ever more important to be making, proper use of the time that we've been allotted, the time that we've been given, right? The inspiration for this lesson came from a brother out in Chicago, an elder brother, just going into how this truth is our priority, man, right? The cares of this world are designed to take your time, right, to occupy your mind. But it's important, again, as I may mention, to redeem the times, right? So as I got here in Ephesians 5 and 16 or 15, it says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise," right? Understanding what's going on around you, right? And understanding what's happening in prophecy, right? How close we are, right, to the downfall of Babylon the Great, right, and the establishment of a righteous kingdom under Yahweh Shai, man, right? How close we are to, our faith being tried and tested, ultimately, right? This is the times that we're in, and you have to be, mindful of the way that you're moving and the way that you carry yourself, right, throughout the world, because, being Jake, we already have a target on our backs. But being, believers and followers of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, that target is even the more great, man, right? Because we're directly opposed to the way this world is continuing on, right? Verse 16, redeeming the time because the days are evil, right? So we're redeeming the time because we know we're in the most evil days known to man, right? We understand that, our enemies are making plans expressly for or to separate us from Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, man, right? So let me get this real quick. Salakia. Get this word redeeming. This is Redeeming Strong's G 1805. It reads, jumping down to the point, to make wise and sacred use of every opportunity for doing good, right? And that's our service to the Lord, man, right? Every chance that you get, you should be doing something, right, to build in the spirit, right? To maintain, to continue to build that foundation, man, right? That's why it said wise and sacred use, because this time, our time is more valuable than these people in the world's time, man, right? Our time can be used to greater good than the people in the world, right? That's why it's more sacred, right? It says, so that zeal and well-doing, as are it were, the purchase money by which we make the time our own, right? So you make your purchase, you redeem by the time that you've been given, man, right? Because it's not our time in the first place, right? Our time, our lives belong to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, right? Our lives belong to Yahweh Shai, right? Because he made that purchase with his blood. But he's given us the time, right, to prove ourselves, man, to prove us to be those friends, to prove us to be those allies, right, to the crown, right? But like it said, to make sacred use for doing good, this is Sirach 14 and verse 11. It says, my son, according to thy ability, do good to thyself and give the Lord his due offering, right? So do good unto yourself and give the Lord what's owed to him, man, right? You know, whether it be lessons, whether it be studying, whether it be reading, fellowshipping, whatever it is, man, right? Anything that's building you up in the spirit, anything that's making you an asset to the ministry and not a liability, right, is doing good unto yourself, and it's what's required from the Lord in the first place, man. You know, and that's why the Spirit is on the apostles to have, you know, the quota that brothers are required to meet, right? That's why the Spirit is on them, and brothers as well, elder brothers, is to put out these exhortation videos, right, to build up the body, man, right? Because the more and more you do this, the more good you're doing for yourself as well, man, right? Let me get this, and we'll close out. So Romans chapter 12 and verse 1. So like it. Romans 12 and 1. It reads, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, right? And that mercy is part of that mercy is the time that we've been given, man. This opportunity, the understanding, this wisdom, right? That's part of the mercy of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. That you present your bodies a living sacrifice, right? So we're making that sacrifice day in and day out, man, right? You know, going to camp is a sacrifice. You know, choosing this to study or make a lesson over whatever else you have in the world, responsibility-wise, is a sacrifice, right? Ultimately, you know, right, choosing the spirit over the flesh, right? That's a sacrifice that brothers make and that we're required to make. Right? You making your body that living sacrifice. Salakia. It says presenting your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable, right? Because we want to be accepted of the Lord unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service, man. Right? So again, right, these things are already the requirements of a prophet, man, right? This is your reasonable service. That means it's something that doesn't require that much in the grand scheme of things, man, right? It's something that, you know, you should expect to do, or you should covet to do, as the scriptures say, covet to prophesy, right? Right? The scriptures say covet to prophesy. So it says your reasonable service. We'll get this word reasonable real quick, and then we'll close it. This is reasonable. Strong's G 3050. Agreeable to reason, following reason, reasonable, logical, pertaining to reason or logic, spiritual, pertaining to the soul. Let's see what else we got. Agreeable to reason, but you know the point. Let's get the common definition. Yep, of a person having sound judgment, right? You know, we seek to be those judges, right? It says fair and sensible, right? It's fair, right? What we're doing is fair, right? What the Lord has required us to do is fair. You know, the work required to give, or the sacrifice required that we give, it's a fair trade, and really, it's what's the word? It's the balance of it is tilted toward the Lord, man, right? Because what we're giving as a sacrifice, right, the reward is so much greater than that sacrifice, man, right? So there's no complaining that we can do on our end, man, right? This is a fair trade, right? This is a winning trade-off, right, in our books, man, right? But just going back to that, redeeming the time, man, right? Salakia. Ephesians 5 and 16. Redeeming the time because the days are evil, right? So we're at the time where, you know, we're making more and more effort into, you know, doing making that sacrifice, man, right? Getting ourselves on the right side of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, right? Whatever the requirements that we have to meet, you know, brothers is willing to do that, man. Just going back to that word for redeeming, right? It says to make wise and sacred use of every opportunity for doing good, so that zeal and well-doing are, as it were, the purchase money by which we make the time our own, right? So, you know, we're making, you know, good use of our time, man, right? We're making the wise and sacred use of all the opportunities we have, right, to get on the good side of the Lord, man, right, to be in the good graces, right, to give that due offering, as we read, to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. So, Lord willing, that was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. I'm going to close by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. Hey, Kwame Asharala and the Bible Ball. Shalom.